Big news, everyone! Well, big if you're a fan of firearms, I guess. I've done previous videos on this channel about one of my personal heroes, Cody Wilson. He's the guy who created the first functional plastic 3D printed gun named the Liberator. He's what you'd call an amateur philosopher, anarchist, technologist, and he was so committed to hosting 3D computer-aided design files online for gun designs and giving them to the world for free that when the federal and subsequently state governments blocked him from doing so, he raised money to not just maintain but actually push the boundaries of the First, Second, and Fifth Amendment farther than they had ever been in the courts. And how he raised that money was by selling an open-sourced metal milling machine that would allow unfinished lowers to be turned into functional gun parts at the push of a button. And if what I said doesn't resonate for you, I'll walk you through why that is so stupendously badass. Lowers are the part of any gun that is considered, for legal purposes, the actual firearm. Everything else, like the stock, the magazines, optic, are just considered accessories. There's generally no governmental prohibition on the sales of any accessory you want. Not even a background check needs to be done in order to buy them. Just throw down money or order a scope online, and the government is none the wiser. But now, with Cody Wilson's company Defense Distributed's milling machine called the Ghost Gunner, which retails for about $1,200, anyone can create as many gun lowers as they want, and the government doesn't know about it. Federal law allows people who are not prohibited from owning firearms to manufacture them for personal use. These are sometimes called ghost guns, unregistered firearms created without a manufacturer's serial number. Certain types of guns, including those with short barrels, require a tax payment and approval from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. However, a license is still required to make guns for sale or distribution. But none of what I've just said is new if you've followed Cody Wilson's infamy for the past half-decade, or if you've watched my channel particularly closely. Why am I talking about this guy again, I already hear you ask. Well, this month, in August of 2020, Cody and the firearm-owning community as a whole got some really good news. This requires a little history, so I'll try to condense it down. In 2013, the U.S. State Department sent Cody a letter basically stating that due to some Cold War-era statute called the International Traffic in Arms Regulation, or ITAR for short, which are the U.S. government's set of rules controlling the import and export of munitions, he was told in no uncertain terms that he would have to take his 3D gun files off the internet or he would be going to jail. Wilson was warned that the technical specs, which he made publicly available, may be ITAR-controlled technical data, released without the required prior authorization from the State Department. So in 2015, 2 years after that, Cody raised the money for his legal team. He brought the case Defense Distributed v. United States Department of State to the District Court for the Western District of Texas. And on July 27, 2018, the State Department settled, gave Cody $40,000 for compensatory damages for making him jump through these legal hoops for years, and even issued him an official license from the State Department, stating that he had the legal right to publish 3D gun files online. Remember that back as far as 2013, all of these gun files hadn't been being shared on Defense Distributed's website, but they were still being shared and downloaded on other websites on both the clear and dark web and through BitTorrent and other file-sharing programs, likely millions of times. All the publicity from government crackdowns on citizens' right to access this information massively backfired, making it forbidden and taboo, where otherwise it would have just been merely a practically useless piece of information no one but the most hardcore gun hobbyist or professional gunsmith would have even cared about it enough to look into. But the State Department settling should have put all this to bed, right? Well, maybe if 9 state attorney generals weren't just leftist activists. The main culprit here being New Jersey Attorney General Gurbir Grewal, who sent Cody a cease and desist letter demanding the group cease and desist selling and advertising ghost guns to residents of New Jersey, since ghost guns are illegal in that state. The problem is that Defense Distributed doesn't sell or advertise ghost guns. They sell and advertise 80% finished gun lowers, which are technically not firearms at all. They also sell a milling machine, and they're trying to give out 3D gun files for free. And now, at least in New Jersey, it is illegal to make a handgun, rifle, or shotgun without a license, and anyone in that state who wants to purchase a firearm requires a purchaser's permit. Gay! To rebut the New Jersey's DA's argument, I could get into a whole lengthy rant about prior restraint and how we don't ban fertilizer or pressure cooker purchases in an entire state just because some people might use them to break the law. Or for that matter, drill presses, which people have been using to finish 80% lowers for decades. Or you could argue that banning the sale of Ghost Gunner in the state of New Jersey is nonsensical, since there are licensed firearm manufacturers in that state that would be able to legally purchase the Ghost Gunner for its intended purpose. Or you could make the dual-use argument. The Ghost Gunner does more than just finish 80% lowers. It can also be programmed to engrave legally owned guns, and even add manufacturer serial numbers to firearms. But forget about the milling machine for a minute. What gives a DA in New Jersey the idea that they can tell a business in Texas that they aren't allowed to host 3D model files on their website when both the state of Texas and federal law, remember the State Department license, explicitly say they can?
This is clearly about a speech power. It's about the power of states to control websites, like the Attorney General of New Jersey, right? He would walk into Chancery Court in Newark and ask a judge there to take a website hosted in Texas off of the internet. One of you should ask him how he thinks he can do that. I don't think truly that the states are threatened by this device. We've lived in a world where you could print this gun for, what, almost 6 years now? You know, it hasn't interrupted our lives. The challenge is the symbolic challenge. And what got everyone so upset is when I got this license from the State Department, and I said, hey, I think gun control is much more difficult now. Of course, I've been saying that for years, but now the challenge is very real. And of course, these state attorney generals let the mask slip to some degree. They said, well, if the federal government won't act, we will. Well, sorry, no. State governments don't have the power to take over a federal function. They don't have the power to overcome the function of the State Department or to second-guess its designations. Or, in your question, they can make no law that abridges the freedom of speech. It's in the text. It's pretty easy. Now, I don't know why they feel that they can, but the important thing is they can.
And now, 2 years after 9 state attorney generals forced Defense Distributed to block access to all 3D gun files from IP addresses emanating from the states legally fighting both Defense Distributed and the U.S. State Department over their settlement, we finally got our first piece of good news. In August of 2020, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously ruled that Grewal, the New Jersey DA, is subject to the jurisdiction of Texas courts. He is one of the 9 attorney generals to file suit in the Western District of Washington to enjoin the State Department from authorizing the release of Defense Distributed's files. Defense Distributed claimed in their legal challenge to Grewal that he violated their First and Second Amendment rights by threatening them with criminal sanctions at a 2018 press conference and asking third-party internet service providers in California to terminate their contracts with Defense Distributed. New Jersey had also initiated a civil lawsuit against Defense Distributed in New Jersey. The Court of Appeals reversed a lower court ruling that backed up Grewal's claim that he wasn't subject to the jurisdiction of Texas courts. Grewal's conduct beyond sending the cease and desist letter confirms his intent to crush Defense Distributed's operations and not simply limit the dissemination of digital files in New Jersey, the Fifth Circuit said. Grewal's enforcement actions are selective. He has not targeted the many similarly situated persons who publish Defense Distributed's files on the internet. The court found that Grewal's decision to take its fight against the company outside of New Jersey's borders opened the doors to facing a lawsuit in Texas. Perhaps nowhere is this better illustrated than in Grewal's effort to enjoin the national distribution of Defense Distributed's files by suing in the state of Washington, far from his or the plaintiff's home state. The court opinion stated, Grewal has also threatened Defense Distributed's founder, Cody Wilson, by name, promising to come after anyone who is contemplating making a printable gun. Together, these actions confirm Grewal's intent to force Defense Distributed to close shop. So, good! Get Cody a nice summer house for all the pain and suffering of simultaneously running his company while putting up with this unconstitutional nonsense for years in court, appeals court, and the media treating him like the technological antichrist. Get some of that sweet Nicholas Sandman money, for God's sakes. And if you don't like the idea of ghost guns, or you think 3D plastic printed guns are stupid and useless, or you don't see the big deal about 3D gun CAD files, or just think Cody Wilson is a bad guy for things I've talked about in other videos he's done in his personal life, try to understand that you're very likely misinformed, or not thinking through the implications of your position if what you want is to protect your right to keep and bear arms or speak freely. The more goofy gun and speech rights we can secure through the legal system now, the less we have to worry about the core aspects that we would do anything to safeguard getting attacked later. The more we kick and scream about bump stock bans and 3D gun files, the harder it'll be the next time Joe Biden 2.0 wants to pass another assault weapons ban.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Hi guys, Media Shadow here. I'm trying to grow the channel and hopefully get more than one video out a week. So if you like what you've seen, please give me a like, subscribe, share, or drop me some coin on Patreon. I've left a link in the description of the video. Thanks!